Okay, so we're starting off with a new chapter 5. So this is section 5.1, and we're going to be able to use properties of congruent triangles to prove triangles congruent. So we've been talking about all of the different types of triangles, and now we're going to use this word congruent, which we've seen before with congruent angles and congruent sides. Okay, a polygon, which we're only talking about triangles, but triangles are a polygon. Polygons are any closed figure that has 3 or more sides. So a triangle follows or falls into the definition of a polygon. A square will be a polygon, a rectangle, a pentagon, an octagon, a hexagon, anything with 3 or more sides. Okay. And congruent figures are figures or polygons that have the same sides and angles. So all equilateral triangles are going to be congruent to one another. Some isosceles, if you have an isosceles with the same 2 side lengths and that third side, those are going to have the same sides and the same angles. And corresponding angles, and we've seen this word before, so corresponding and corresponding sides are in the same positions in polygons with equal number of sides. So they're going to correspond to one another. They're going to be in that same position in those certain parts of the triangle. So if you're looking at a triangle that has an angle of 30 in that same spot, it's going to be in a different triangle be that angle of 30. Okay, so for our properties here, we have these 2 congruent triangles, and you can see by the tick marks that CB and KL are the same. They both have just 1 tick mark. You have 2 tick marks, 3 tick marks, and same with your angles. You have 1 angle marker and then 2 and 3. So corresponding angles are going to be those ones that are congruent to one another. So we should be able to pick these out. I see angle A is congruent to angle J. Angle B is congruent to angle K. They both have 2 tick marks, 1, 2, and 1, 2 on B. And then angle C is going to be congruent to angle L. They both have 3 tick marks. And the same idea for the sides, so the tick marks that you have on the sides. Okay, CB has just 1 tick mark. It's going to be congruent to KL. If you see 2 tick marks, I see 2 tick marks on JL and 2 tick marks on AC. So JL is congruent to AC. And the last one, the 3rd tick marks, I see AB is congruent to JK. And remember that these can be written in the opposite way as well. We can call CB BC congruent to KL, or BC congruent to LK. Okay, as long as you're still talking about those same things. What we should be able to see is to name a polygon with the vertices. Notice that the angles and sides are congruent how the figure is named. So I see triangle ABC is congruent to triangle JKL. I see A and J. Those were 2 that I had here. I see B and K are related, and then C and L are related. And they need to be in that specific order for you to be talking about those triangles being congruent to one another. So if we look at our example on the next page, it says given triangle XYZ is congruent to NPQ, identify the congruent corresponding parts. Now again, I'm looking and I'm seeing X and N, so I can see just from this right here that angle X should be congruent to angle N. I see Y and P, so angle Y should be congruent to angle P, and then angle Z should be congruent to angle Q just by how the triangle was written. Now I can also see in my picture that Y has one tick and P has one tick, which is what I had here. I see Z has 2 ticks and Q has 2 ticks, which is what I see here, and the same for the third, X and N. So angle Z is congruent to angle Q. YZ, the side lengths are a little bit tougher, but our picture tells us here that YZ and PN are congruent. And it's also by these angles. I see Y has just 1 and P has just 1, and then X has 3 and N has 3. So if I didn't have this tick mark, I'd be able to use the angles to tell this. Angle P will be congruent to angle Y. Angle X will be congruent to angle N. NQ, again, I'm looking. NQ has 2 on this angle, 3 on this angle, 2 on this angle, 3 on this angle. I see that XZ is the side length that I'm looking for. I also see these 3 tick marks on either one of those sides. PN, side length PN has 1 tick mark, and then YX also has 1 tick mark. In our last example, example 2, hopefully you can read yours a little nicer. These are subtraction. We got plus here and plus here. Okay, so we're looking for X, and it says triangle EFG is congruent to RST. Find the values below. I see X is in this angle here. I can see right away that I'm going to have angle E congruent to angle R, angle F congruent to angle S, and angle G congruent to angle T. So that should help me out right away, especially with this X stuff. So I see E is this angle right here, and it's going to be congruent to angle R, and this is something that I know. This is 90 degrees. So to find X, I'm going to have 4X plus 6 equal to 90 degrees. If I subtract, I get 4X equal to 54, and divide by 4 on both sides leaves me with X equal to 17. To find Y, I'm seeing the same thing. I see angle T, and I know angle T is congruent to angle G. So this means I'm going to have 5Y minus 2 equals 28. Since they're congruent, 5Y equals 30 by subtracting 2 on both sides, and then I'm dividing by 5 to get Y equals 6. Okay, and the last 2, let's see if I can move this down. The measure of angle F. Okay, now I got to do some kind of investigation here. Angle F, so I know angle F is congruent to angle S. Okay. Angle R is 90, which means angle E was 90, and then angle T and angle G are congruent, so I got 28. So if I'm looking at angle F, I see I have a 90-degree angle, a 28-degree angle, and then I'm looking for F. All of my angles should add to 180 degrees, so all of them together. So I have 90 for angle E, I have 28 for angle G, and then the measure of angle F is the one I'm looking for. So I should be able to add these together. 180 equals 90 plus 28, which is 118. If I subtract this from both sides, I end up with the measure of angle F equaling 62 degrees. And the last one, ST, is my side length. The side lengths are definitely the hardest. So if I look at my angles, ST, I got T and S, I got 2 ticks and 3 ticks here. So it's going to be directly related. ST is going to be congruent to GF because G has 2 ticks and F has 3 ticks, just like the angles S and T, which means that I have 3Z minus 8 equal to Z plus 4, and I want to solve for Z first before I can plug it back in. I'm going to subtract Z on both sides. I'm going to add 8. 2Z equals 12. If I divide by 2, I end up with, actually scroll a little, divide by 2, I get Z equal to 6, and then I have to plug that back in to ST. So ST was originally Z plus 6 plus 4, so now I'm going to have 6 plus 4, which gives me 10. Okay, this one was a little bit longer, but there's a lot of information, so make sure you get through the classwork and you will be all set.